More Than Money Matters, Redefining Poverty and Its Measurement by Lily Grella and John Juneau. So what is poverty? Iceland, the author of Poverty in America, defines poverty as economic or income deprivation. In the US today, most people would agree with Iceland's definition. In fact, the official poverty definition, as defined by the US Census Bureau, uses money income before taxes and does not use capital gains or non-cash benefits. However, does income lowness fully define poverty? We think not. When investigating the etymology of the word poverty, we found that the modern English word is derived from the 12th century old French word pauvreté, which translates to wretched condition. So income lowness could be a factor of a wretched condition. However, it is not the only factor. Many other things contribute to it. More than money matters. Therefore, the best definition of poverty is Nussbaum's interpretation of central capability failure. The idea that a person experiencing poverty is lacking the resources and capabilities essential for living a dignified life. Moreover, we believe the best method of measuring poverty has a twofold focus: income lowness, measured by a modified supplemental poverty measurement, combined with various discursive measures to identify capability failure. We will touch more on this later. For starters, we will focus on Nussbaum's interpretation of the capability approach. Let's start with the basics. Capabilities define what a person can do or be. A person's characteristics are their internal capabilities. For example, Steve is athletic and likes to exercise. Being in shape is his internal capability. On top of this, people have external opportunities, which allow for substantial freedoms. Substantial freedoms are external opportunities that are actually attainable. For example, Steve has access to good, affordable health care, which is his substantial freedom. However, suppose Steve had access to good health care. However, it is not affordable. Therefore, it is an external opportunity, but not a substantial freedom, because it's not obtainable. Together, his internal capabilities and external opportunities make up his combined capability. For Nussbaum, there are 10 combined capabilities that are vital for maintaining basic human dignity, which she calls central capabilities. These central capabilities include bodily health, emotions, affiliation, among many others. Now let's go back to Steve's example for a second. The combination of his fitness and access to healthcare provides him with his bodily health central capability. When Steve has all of his central capabilities met, he has basic human dignity. On the flip side, Nussbaum says capability failure occurs when they do not meet the necessary standard for basic human dignity. Failure of basic human dignity is the best way to define a wretched condition. Therefore, Nussbaum's definition of poverty is clearly the best. So what exactly is an example of central capability failure? Imagine Lisa were unable to eat an adequate amount of food due to income lowness. We would say that her bodily health capability has failed. Moreover, if Lisa were subjected to social injustices, such as Jim Crow laws, then we would say her capability of affiliation is failed. Therefore, capability failure comes in many different forms. However, it will always result in poverty. While income lowness, according to Iceland, is conceptually easy to understand and intuitively appealing, as a definition, it is ultimately insufficient. In contrast, Nussbaum's central capability failure is the best way to define poverty due to the fact that it is focused on basic human dignity, which fully encompasses having a wretched condition. Sen says, if concern is failure of certain minimal capabilities because of lack of economic means, we can't identify poverty simply as low income. The extent of deprivation may be underjudged if we concentrate only on the size of income. Again, Nussbaum's approach focuses on basic human dignity. This definition incorporates income lowness with social injustices that result in capability failure. A person's basic human dignity is threatened by this capability failure. Therefore, Nussbaum's approach to defining poverty is above and beyond the best definition available. Now that we have our definition of poverty, we can talk about how we can best measure it.
We believe that the best measurement for poverty is a modified supplemental poverty measurement and various discursive measures to identify capability failure. But let's begin by pondering this situation. There are two people. Let's name them Steve and Lisa. Steve has an income that's lower than Lisa's. However, Lisa has recently contracted HIV and has to pay large sums of money every month to receive treatment. These medical out-of-pocket expenses ultimately reduce her disposable income more than Steve's. In this situation, who is poorer? According to the measurement type in America now, Steve is poorer. America uses a measurement called the OPM, or the Official Poverty Measurement. The OPM is an absolute form of measurement, which means it remains constant in regards to standard of living. It can increase or decrease due to inflation only. Here in the U.S., there's a wide degree of support for this type of measure. It has two components: poverty thresholds and definition of family income via resources. These resources the OPM accounts for are gross annual pre-tax income, cash welfare such as TANF, and family members who are legally connected in a single household. The threshold for the OPM is defined by Molly Orchansky's Thrifty Food Basket, which is multiplied by 3. The Thrifty Food Basket is the yearly cost of cheap but sustainable food. In the 1960s, food made up about a third of the household spending, which is why the basket is multiplied by 3 to define the threshold. Iceland refers to it as easy to understand and intuitively appealing. Nevertheless, this measure is inaccurate and has many flaws. To begin with, consider Steve and his two daughters, Lisa and Mary. Steve's income is $21,300. Based on the current OPM, Steve is not in poverty. However, let's take a look at the full picture. Sadly, Lisa has leukemia, which cost Steve $3,000 in medical out-of-pocket expenses to pay for her treatment. Moreover, after taxes, Steve's income is only $19,000. As a result, Steve's disposable income is only about $16,000. In this case, he is well below the poverty threshold. But according to the OPM, Steve is still not in poverty. Why is that? Well, the OPM does not account for near cash or in-kind benefits, like food stamps, nor does it account for non-discretionary expenses such as taxes, transportation costs for work, or medical expenses, like Lisa's leukemia treatment. In addition, the OPM doesn't account for differences due to geographic location. Therefore, Steve's disposable income in a city like Washington, D.C. would be different than in a rural area like Lexington. Another obvious disadvantage to the OPM that Iceland brings up quickly in his article states that as standards of living change, so do people's perceptions of what poverty means. This brings up the fact that poverty is a relative term. However, the OPM is an absolute measurement. The OPM also has no stratification, which means it doesn't show the depth of poverty. Of course, the greatest flaw of the OPM is that it is extremely outdated in determining the actual poverty line. Molly Orchansky's Thrifty Food Basket was assembled in the 1960s. However, tests today show that the food only uses about 1/6 of a family's income. Therefore, we should be multiplying the food basket by 6, not by 3. All in all, the copious flaws apparent with the OPM make it a drastically inappropriate measurement for poverty. In response to this, we've decided this modified SPM, or supplemental poverty measurement, corrects most of the flaws of the OPM. Firstly, the SPM looks at income from all sources, from in-kind to near cash, that go into satisfying the food, clothing, shelter, and utility needs. The non-discretionary expenses that ultimately subtract from an income, such as taxes, child support, and medical out-of-pocket expenses, like Lisa's leukemia treatment, also go into the SPM measure. An important thing to also note is the fact that under the OPM, only families that live at the same address that are blood or marriage related are calculated together. In the SPM, all individuals living at the same address, including unrelated co-resident children and cohabitors and their children, are included. The SPM also takes into consideration geographical location. In addition, our modified version of the SPM would be stratified to depict the depth of poverty and would be calculated using updated figures that apply to life today, not life in the 60s. Back to Steve's situation, under the OPM, Steve wasn't in poverty. However, using our modified SPM, Steve is in poverty even though his situation is unchanged. These reasons are exactly why we should begin to move away from the OPM and focus more fully on the figures produced by the SPM in order to best measure poverty in society today. While it is important to note that we believe the SPM does a better job at more accurately measuring poverty, there are still some drawbacks associated with it. For one, the SPM is an absolute measurement. Just as with the OPM, the absolute qualities of the SPM still does not capture the holistic picture of poverty, as money is not the sole influencing factor. Our definition of poverty as essential capabilities failure taught us that poverty could sometimes be a result of income lowness, which we can measure with our modified SPM. However, often poverty is a result of other factors such as social injustices, which we will account for using discursive measures. Essentially, we will have to study polls and statistics such as mortality rates, life expectancy, access to healthcare, and even more in order to draw analytical conclusions about possible central capability failures. This, of course, is not a perfect system. However, it does to some degree address the central capability failures not due to income lowness, which is something that no other measurement does. So why exactly is this measurement the best? First and foremost, the OPM has several flaws that make it outdated and highly ineffective. In contrast, our modified SPM is better than the OPM because it more holistically measures income lowness. Of course, as our definition states, poverty is more than income lowness. Therefore, our discursive measures are extremely important because they identify poverty not caused by income lowness. Combined, our modified SPM and the discursive measures are the best way to fully measure poverty. Ultimately, the best definition for poverty is Nussbaum's central capability approach, which considers poverty to be the failure of basic human dignity. With that said, the best way to measure poverty is using a modified SPM and various discursive measures, which identify central capability failure caused by income lowness or factors like social injustice.